Over the past few years, the NFC South has been really one of the worst divisions in football. And I think that it continues. Oh, look at that. Look at that thumbs up. One of the worst divisions in football, and it's kind of caught in some heat just due to the nature of the play that ensues in that division. However, heading into 2024, I think we see a little bit of a shift in this division. I'm not going to say that it's going to be one of the top divisions in the league in 2024, but I think it's certainly going to look a lot different. I think there's going to be a lot better performance, a lot better play with new coaches, new quarterbacks, new players in general. So a lot to be excited about for the NFC South heading into 2024. On this show, we're going to break down some of the win totals, some of the Vegas odds to win the division, each kind of give like a generalized preview of each team heading into 2024. We've already done the AFC South. We apologize. We're a bit late on schedule, but we're getting back into the mix with the NFC South, and we will continue to do our division by division breakdown over the next few weeks. So before we do so, Brendan, how we doing, man?
Tired. It's been a week, so I'm just excited to get back on this. Been missing it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool that it picks up my thumbs up here.
Doesn't do mine.
It's freaking crazy. So the reason we've been behind the ball, I did move into a new house, or not a new house. It's an old house. It's a tiny house, but I get a new living quarters. So recording setup is a bit different. So excuse me if I run into some technical difficulty, but hey, enough about that. Let's get into it.
Come on.
The Atlanta Falcons. New head coach, Raheem Morris. New quarterback, Kirk Cousins. New offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson. He is from both of those coaches from the Rams. Zach Robinson was the Rams passing game coordinator. So really just a new look team in general. There's tons of young talent littered across the offense, specifically led by Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan Robinson. Really solid trenches as well. Going over their win total, they actually have the highest win total in the division at 9.5. They have the best odds to win the division. The best that I found was negative 115 on FanDuel. So even though they had one of the worst drafts this offseason, specifically speaking in regards to the Michael Penix stuff, they're still favored to win in the division. And they're still highly touted heading into 2024. They're going to have a great roster. Again, lots of young talent. There's plenty to be excited about. They had some great additions in the offseason, and they had a few losses, but nothing crazy. So Rondale Moore, Darnell Mooney, Charlie Warner. And then if we talk about some of the losses, they lost Desmond Ridder, thank goodness. Jonnu Smith at tight end, Scotty Miller, wide receiver. And they did lose Cordell Patterson at running back, but really nothing crazy. The only big defensive losses that they had were Jeff Okudah at corner and Bud Dupree at linebacker. So they're gearing up heading into 2024. There's a lot to be excited about. Before I get into any of the details, Brendan, gut feel about the Falcons for this year. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
I mean, just think they could be even better if they wouldn't have picked a quarterback that won't play for 4 years in the top 10 of the NFL draft, which is crazy. We won't get into it. But yeah, I think it's wheels up this year. With Arthur Smith there previously, I mean, this is going to look like it's most of the same players. It's going to look like a completely different team. Just with, I mean, obviously a new quarterback, but we're going to see I guess it's late for a breakout now, but like with Kyle Pitts and Drake London performing a lot better based on this new offensive scheme. Bijan's amazing. They're not going to split time 50-50 with Tyler Algier anymore, I don't think. So they put Kirk there with a lot of playmakers to really make a splash in this division, and I love it. The win total is 9.5. I think they go over that, 10 or 11 wins, and going to be a playoff team this year. It's going to make Harrison happy, and I'm excited to watch it.
Yeah. I also want to throw a disclaimer out there. I am a Atlanta Falcons homer, so I try not to be biased in this, but inherently some does come out. So take that as you will. You can respect my take because I may know the team better than others, or you can not respect it because I may have some bias, and that may be true. But starting from the top and just the ways that this team is going to look differently, One, at the quarterback position, they're going to pass the ball a lot more. Kirk Cousins alone is going to drive the passing rate over expectation up significantly, especially as a team who literally passed at the lowest rate in the league last year.
Sad.
So, I mean, that alone is going to change it differently. Usage for, you mentioned this earlier, the usage for some of these players is going to look a lot differently. I think we're going to see a lot more Bijan Robinson, a lot more Kyle Pitts, and a lot more Drake London. I think in this league, we see smart teams use their best players. It's not, there's a difference between college football and NFL where you can scheme up X's and O's, and, talent, of course, matters in college football. I don't want anybody to take that out of context of what I'm saying here, but you can scheme for the lack of talent. You can still find success with worse talent in great schemes in college football, but at the NFL, like the talent is so key to win-loss success in the NFL because, I mean, everybody's scheme is great. I mean, of course, you have some outliers, some coaches, Arthur Smith, that's really bad. And, actually, I take that back. I think he does scheme up one of the best run games in the NFL, but different schemes, really makes your team marginal, for better or for less. But the talent and utilizing that talent well and planning around your talent is what takes you to the next level. That's what we see with these playoff teams, whether it's at the quarterback position or a big time defensive edge player or something like that. It's really utilizing your talent and utilizing it well. So I think that Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson understand that. They're going to come in there and they're going to use those key players extremely well. And for me, I feel like the defense as a whole, nobody looks at the Falcons and thinks of strong defense, and they're not, a top 10 defense, but they're certainly top half of the league, in my opinion, led by AJ Terrell at the corner position. And we did add some key pieces in the offseason, Ruka Arroyo, I still can't nail that down, but, I think they're slowly putting together a more complete team. And it's a lot to be excited about. Now, to kind of shift gears a little bit, one thing that they have going for them outside of just the talent and the new coaching and stuff is for the second consecutive year, they have a top 2 strength of schedule heading into 2024. The only other team that has an easier strength of schedule is the New Orleans Saints. So now, these are all calculated based off of win-loss percentages of last year. And there are a couple other strength of schedule ratings that I look at that bake in more advanced statistics, like, EPA per play generated, EPA per play allowed, and so what. But for the most part, the Falcons across the board with all of those ratings are definitely in the top 5, if not top 2, in terms of easiest strength of schedule. So they should easily get double-digit wins this year.
Yeah,
easily.
That's something that people don't think about. It's like if you go on a gauntlet of the Bills, the Chiefs, I don't know, the Dolphins, the Texans, like all in a row, like it's really hard to win games doing that all in a row. And the fact that they have the second easiest schedule is, regardless of how great the team actually is, like that's just huge involving win totals. I don't think that's something that people really think about.
No. And now we've said a lot of positive, and we've talked about the talent that they've added and that they have and they're building on. But, one thing I like to do in these shows is I like to take an opposite stance. In what scenarios do we see the Falcons not find success? And I'll start from stuff that may even go on outside of really the X's and O's of the game, but more so of it's a new coach, new offensive coordinator. There's going to be some growing pains. Kirk Cousins, new quarterback, first year with this team. Now, it's unlikely that he struggles, but it's possible, trying to find some chemistry with some of those players there. And not to mention, let's circle back to the Michael Penix pick. I mean, I don't think anybody would say that was good for the locker room. I think that
Kirk's such a locker room guy. You know he is.
Yeah,
and you like that? He's a locker room guy. I think the chemistry's gonna be great. I have to think that the morale is extremely low the last couple of years of Arthur Smith, and bringing this more exciting style of offense and having Kirk in there. I mean, he's just gonna have chains on after wins. Everyone's gonna love it.
yeah. I mean, I certainly hope so. I certainly hope so. But I thought, truthfully, and now this is more of a malpractice by Arthur Smith / really, really poor quarterback play in Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke. But last year, the Falcons, they went 7-10. They failed to make the postseason in the easiest division in football. At home last year, they were 5-3. Away, they only won 2 games. So their away performance needs to get picked up tremendously. In the NFC alone, they went 4-8. The NFC is significantly easier, all things considered, and way less concentrated in great teams than the AFC. So they should find success here, but they didn't last year. So I'm hoping that's more driven by poor quarterback play plus poor coaching. There's a lot better morale around the team, and of course a lot better quarterback play that we anticipate on having out of Kirk Cousins compared to Desmond Ridder. So expectations are high for the Falcons. Now, I think you already kind of gave yours away a little bit in your general synopsis of what you think the Falcons are going to do ahead of 2024. But my favorite part is talking about the Vegas win total and the odds to win the division. So 9.5 win total in the NFC South, one of the easiest divisions in football, as it seems, and one of the easiest strength of schedules of 2024.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be over, right?
I really would assume so, especially being the NFC. But I mean, you have 6 games in that division, half are at home. Like, I would anticipate them winning at least 4 of those, and then the rest of their schedule is pretty soft. So, I know everybody likes to always bet overs, and double digits is a lot in the NFL. But with they added a game, right, 2 years ago or something, or they added a bye week. I don't know.
No,
anyway,
it's a game.
We added a game too.
17 total games.
Yeah, so 10-7 is easily achievable here.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think they also PFF graded a top 10 offensive line, and they'll have some beefy boys protecting Kirk Cousins. So I think that bodes well for him as well. I think that's one of the reasons Kirk even considered the Falcons too. Is, I mean, of course, the money. Boys. Of course, the money, the young talent, plus a good offensive line. It's a recipe for success. If they do fall short of this, if they do fall short of expectations, I will even go as far to say is if they fall short of winning the division, that's falling flat on their face. That's a disappointing season in my eyes. And I'll talk more on the Falcons in terms of playoff expectations and Super Bowl expectations after I break down the Saints and the Bucs, because boy, I have some spicy takes. So, all right, man. Let's move on to the Saints, the Atlanta Falcons counterpart. These guys hate each other. Honestly, kind of just a disappointing last few seasons in general. Their 2023 performance was really just par. Honestly, they didn't make the postseason after going 9-8 in the regular season. They picked up 5 wins at home last season and 4 away. Derek Carr is, in my opinion, not the answer. He's not the answer. And I'm not going to say Spencer Rattler is too, because they drafted Spencer Rattler. There's some unexpected hype around Spencer Rattler, but I'm not going to say he is either. He could be, but I don't think so. But truth in my eyes is that I don't think that they'll ever break through until they just kind of restart. Now, the one thing I do have to say is that I think the hiring of offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak is going to actually bode well for the Saints. I think they're going to enable play action for Derek Carr. They're going to make it easier for Derek Carr to make plays. They're not going to let Derek Carr try and have to be so cerebral about the offense in mid game, because really they were continuing to run the Sean Payton offense, and I think that, quite frankly, that offense was too complex for Derek Carr. I think Clint Kubiak needs to dumb the game down a little bit, enable some play action here and there, slow the game down for Derek Carr, and honestly, make the offense where he has to make less decisions. And so I think if that's the case, I think they have playmakers, young guys like A.T. Perry and Rashid Shaheed that can certainly make big plays. And if you can scheme them open, then, I mean, they can certainly get open. And I think Derek Carr can certainly find them downfield. So that's where I think the Saints have fallen short. Now, they had a quiet draft. It was still a good draft, but it was more quiet. There was no big name guys. They did draft Kool-Aid McKinstry in the second round. They drafted a big offensive lineman in the first round from Oregon State. I always butcher this name, Talisie Fuaga. Spencer Rattler, we already talked about him. Gerard Means from Pittsburgh, underrated guy. They added a few guys on the offensive side of the ball in the offseason, Cedric Wilson and Equanimeous St. Brown. They also signed Chase Young to the defensive side of the ball, so that's going to be interesting to see if he actually contributes or not. I will say, one thing that it's kind of up to interpretation is the Saints are the oldest team in the league by average age. And, some people will sit here and be like, oh man, veteran team, which is true. A lot of seasoned vets. But at the same time, they're lacking in young talent. Now on the offensive side of the ball, they do have some good young talent, like the wide receivers names that I just mentioned, Kendre Miller, running back. But for the rest of the team, they're not getting any younger. So interpret that as you will. I think it's a healthy mix of both. They have good veteran leadership, but at the same time, they're lacking a little bit on the youthful explosiveness that some other teams may have. So enough of me rambling about the team and the 2023 performance and 2024 additions and losses. Brendan, quick synopsis of the New Orleans Saints. What are your expectations for them heading into 2024?
So I'll start on the defensive side of the ball. I never really worry about the Saints having a terrible defense. I think that's going to be okay, especially with the strength of schedule that you were talking about at the beginning, that it's the easiest, right? Under Atlanta.
The easiest.
Yep. The easiest strength of schedule. And then my biggest problem with the Saints is they just lack like proven stars, skill players on the offensive side. And with Derek Carr not really elevating anybody into that stardom, it's really difficult. I know with Clint Kubiak coming in, I'm really hoping that they, use a lot of pre-snap motion, use Rashid Shaheed, I think is his name, Rashid Shaheed, who's so fast. And I'm really hoping that they can use a lot of pre-snap motion, get Kamara in the passing game, and, utilize Olave out there. And I think that, like we were saying earlier, that not running the Sean Payton offense and, letting it be more simple for Derek there, I definitely think that they can do that if the new OC change works. But, there's always growing pains at the beginning. So I don't think we'll really see what the Saints are actually about until maybe like week 4 or 5. And so, I have low expectations. I don't know if you said it or not, but their win total is 7.5. Like, there aren't really a lot of expectations around this team. But their strength of schedule plays into a lot into it. So I think that, they're just going to be the same. I'm really not looking for them to really make any strides this year, as long as they have Derek Carr there.
Yeah, consensus win total is 7.5, and I've talked myself into both ways at some point in time while drawing up the notes for this. Is I can make a bear case for the Saints and what my expectations of this team are, and I can make a bull case. And truth be told, the bull case is really around the offensive coordinator, because Dennis Allen, he's going into year 5, and I think that I don't like writing coaches off too early. But my concern is I don't know if Dennis Allen is willing to demo this team and kind of build, not from scratch necessarily, but set a foundation and then build from there. Because this team's not getting any younger. They need some talent desperately bad out of some of their young rookies and their younger guys. Chris Olave really needs to show up for Derek Carr, or vice versa. Derek Carr needs to show up for Chris Olave too. So I think Clint Kubiak can certainly, drive this team forward in terms of offensive success, but they need to sustain defensive success. And again, those guys like Marcus Lattimore, they aren't getting any younger. So I need to see. It's hard to judge this team because a new offensive coordinator can change everything. But man, it's just hard to get on the bandwagon for the Saints team. I also don't like the Saints, so take that as you will. But do they have the parts and pieces to win now? Yes, but to be frank, I think their ceiling is like their max ceiling. I think is winning the division, but not really doing a whole lot in the playoffs. Is that a fair assessment? Like I think they could actually steal the NFC South, given how easy it is, but I don't think they're really like built to make a playoff run or even make it to the Super Bowl whatsoever.
I don't think that they're going to be able to win the division. I just don't think they have enough pieces. Like, for lack of a better term, I mean, I think they should rebuild, but they don't have, for lack of a better term, any capital to do that. Like, they don't have anybody that, people want to trade picks for, like anything. So it's tanking season time, if you ask me. But I don't get paid to coach. But yeah, the biggest thing for me is you can have a losing record and still go over on their win total, that's why, I'm convinced they can go 8-9.
Yeah, I mean, they went 9-8 last season, and I mean, it's possible. I just, I want to say over on the win total, but yeah, it's going to be marginal. They may get to 500, and I think that's the expectation is have 500. But crazier things have happened, so. And that brings me to the Bucs. Speaking of crazier things. So Todd Bowles is still the head coach there. The new offensive coordinator is now Liam Cohen from Kentucky. He was previously at one point in time the Rams offensive coordinator before going to Kentucky. They re-signed Baker to a mega contract. I don't want to say mega, but big for what I had considered in regards to Baker Mayfield. They still have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin on the edge, a young wide receiver in Trey Palmer, and of course, running back is Rachaad White. So they still got a lot of good defensive talent. I think they did lose Devin White, but nonetheless, before I get into roster additions, changes, whatever, Bucs 2023 performance was pretty crazy. They did go 9-8 during the regular season. They made the playoffs by winning the division, and then they made a hell of a run in the playoffs. I mean, the way that they ended it was kind of crazy in its own right against a really, really good Detroit Lions team. They really showed themselves to be a worthy, respectable opponent, a worthy team in the NFL. So they're bringing back a lot of those same pieces, losing more so on the defensive side than on the offensive side. However, I think losing Dave Canales as the play caller is really going to hurt. Jury's still out on the Liam Cohen thing. I have mixed opinions about Liam Cohen leading this offensive unit into 2024, but a wild roller coaster of a season last year for the Bucs, certainly riding a lot of great momentum heading into 2024, but this one's going to be hit or miss. Before I get into anything else, Beach, Bucs, expectations, what do you think?
Well, I just want to start by saying I feel like they definitely exceeded expectations last year. And the biggest thing for me on the Bucs is the loss of Dave Canales. And, he did what you were talking about earlier, which was using his players well. When Rachaad White in the passing game, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, all that. And with Liam Cohen coming in, I mean, I only know him from Kentucky. I don't remember him at the Rams, but, I'm just expecting a downgrade in that regard, and I just am expecting less than what we saw last year, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the loss of offensive coordinator is pretty huge. So the loss of other key players on the defensive side is also pretty huge. They lost D. Delaney, they lost Carlton Davis, they lost Devin White, and they lost Shaquille Barrett. So with those losses, they're going to have to make up for it on the offensive side of the ball as well. So given that, the expectations are going to be higher for the offense, I'm really hoping that Liam Cohen can come in and, kind of, call a same game as Dave Canales was able to do. I think he utilized Baker's talent really, really well. And he called games that favored Baker's ability and kind of hid his inability to do certain things. And I think a positive going into 2024 is Baker has established rapport with these receivers, with this offense. He's kind of made a name for himself as a leader in this locker room. These guys, I think they really enjoyed playing for Baker, so that's really good. It's hard to make any sort of, to deduce anything about Liam Cohen because at the Rams, of course, the Rams have been consistently successful on the offensive side of the ball, more so contributed to Sean McVay's brilliancy, more so than anything else. But, coaches can learn and absorb that kind of information. So it's possible that Liam Cohen is carrying that high regard, that same regard from Sean McVay. But over at Kentucky, for those who didn't really watch college football, it was a big dud in terms of expectations heading into the season because Kentucky brought in Liam Cohen. They were supposed to be the next big thing. Kentucky had made a name for themselves as a top 25 team in college football. And this hire in Liam Cohen was supposed to be the next big thing to happen for this Kentucky program. They brought in a transfer, Devin Leary, from NC State. He was a great transfer addition. But that season, the offense was just kind of flatlined. They did well behind Ray Davis, but really the offense didn't do a whole lot, or at least what they were expected to do. They didn't advance up in it at all, and certainly had times of a poor performance. And so I can't really make any sort of inference about Liam Cohen based on that because one, it was college ball. He could be led astray by his head coach, forcing him to do something. Maybe the players weren't adequate for his scheme. I don't know. It was 1 year. So I kind of just don't think about that at all. And I just assume that that year never happened because I don't want to make any sort of bad conclusion or ill conclusion because of all of the dynamic variables that go into his 1 year at Kentucky. So still up in the air. I think, even with that, Baker still has some of the general knowledge that he learned from Dave Canales last year. And again, NFC South, one of the easier divisions in football. It's going to be harder than it has been in the past few years, but NFC in general should be fine. They have the 27th ranked strength of schedule heading into 2024. So I think, sorry, I said 27th, but I meant, I guess that would be 5th, but 27th in terms of total win percentage. So it would be the 5th easiest strength of schedule. Is that you tracking? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have it in my notes as 27th win percentage. So I said 27th strength of schedule, but it's 5th. So 5th easiest strength of schedule. Okay.
We're following.
Cool. So still easy strength of schedule for the Bucs. The Vegas win total is 7.5. So 7.5 on FanDuel, 8.5 on Caesars. You can find it. This is one of the few that you can find differently at Bucs. The previous two were pretty consensus at 7.5 and 9.5, but some books are lower on the Bucs than others. So I feel comfortable taking 7.5 with the Bucs. 8.5, I'm a bit hesitant, but Beej, do you expect the same sort of performance for this Bucs team, or do you expect a downgrade, upgrade? What do you think?
The biggest thing for me is just the uncertainty with the new offensive coordinator. Obviously recency bias would say that it's going to regress in the negative direction. But we, like you said earlier, we don't know if that was Stoops in college or what it was. So, but the biggest thing for me is just the uncertainty. So I've got to pick an under at for some team in this division, right? So I am sticking with the under on this one based on the uncertainty, and we just don't know really what we're going to get with them.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
I do think this team, with the success that they found late last year, with the momentum that they had coming off of their kind of crazy playoff happening, I do think that they'll continue to find success. So I'm going to take over on 7.5. Not so sure on 8.5. I actually like their odds to win the division. Like if I were to sprinkle the Bucs plus 300 on FanDuel, comparatively speaking, to the Saints plus 375 on Caesars. And I think that for me, it's Falcons, Bucs, Saints, Panthers. But the Panthers aren't that far behind. And I think one of my bold predictions is that the Panthers actually don't finish last in this division. So that segues me right into the Panthers and their new head coach, Dave Canales, of course, led by quarterback Bryce Young. Lots to be, curious, lots of questions heading into the season, lots of excitement, lots of gray, like ambiguity, with what they did in the offseason. Their draft was kind of weird. They drafted Xavier Legette first round at pick 32, even though they have very similar wide receiver in Jonathan Mingo. Now, I do think there was some good logic behind, at first I was skeptical, but Dave Canales kind of explained himself. We can get into that here in a little bit. But they also added Deontay Johnson at wide receiver, David Moore at wide receiver, and Mike Boone at running back. Those were really the only big ones. They did add Jadeveon Clowney at outside linebacker. He's getting a bit older, but he can still contribute on the defensive side of the things. Same with Cam Gill and Alshon Robinson. They lost DJ Chark, Hayden Hurst, and Laviska Shenault. So nothing crazy in terms of defensive losses. I think that they're still kind of putting the pieces together on the defensive side of the ball. But man, 2023 was a brutal year for the Panthers. They went 2-15. They went winless away from home last year and tallied only 2 home victories. They only won one time in both the NFC South and the NFC as a whole. 1-5 in the NFC South, 1-11 in the NFC. And in one possession games, they were 2-6. So tough 2023. But I think things are looking up with the hire of Dave Canales. I think per some of the advanced metrics that I studied this offseason, I think Dave Canales is actually a really brilliant offensive mastermind, and he can certainly it's a fun project in Bryce Young, because for all you film bros, you already know this, but Bryce Young did a lot well. Now, I think his wide receivers did him an injustice with a few of some mishaps, but I think looking back at film, he did really well, comparatively speaking, to his actual performance, his actual numbers. So I think that Dave Canales can come in there and fix some of that. I still think it's great that, Adam Thielen is still there. He's a good vet, great route runner. And I think that's the same reason they brought in Deontay Johnson. At first I was like, why are they trading for old ass Deontay Johnson? But he does what I think he does well what Bryce Young needs, and I think what Dave Canales wants, and he's a phenomenal route runner. He's great, with the playbook, and I think that he's going to be open and right where Bryce Young expected. Bryce Young is a very cerebral quarterback, so I think he needs guys who will consistently be running the route that he knows from the playbook, and will consistently be able to catch the ball. Just frankly speaking, good hands. So I think they were trying to put together this team of seasoned vets that were going to be more consistent than what they were working with last year. And I really do think that they're going to use Xavier Legette like a poor man's Deebo Samuel, just the way that Dave Canales was speaking about him. So I'm actually really excited. They also drafted Jonathan Brooks at second round. He's a running back out of Texas. I'm really excited about this offense. I think there's a lot to be excited about. I think they will make a splash. I think they will win a few games in this division that will surprise a lot of people. And we will be talking about the Carolina Panthers heading into 2025.
Yeah, it's time to run. It's time to run in Charlotte, man. I'm so excited with, to piggyback off of what I was saying about how much I think it's going to hurt the Bucs from losing Canales. I think that equally the Panthers are going to gain a lot from him, and he really used the players that he had and Baker to their strengths. And Bryce Young can't throw the ball when there's a collapsing pocket, so he's just not really tall enough to do that. So I think that they're going to get the ball out early and often to Thielen, Deontay. I agree with you. That's why they brought him in. And then use Leggett in a bunch of different ways that they can. And Bryce Young's a good quarterback. He just didn't have anything to work with last year. And I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm really excited to see what Canales does with all these pieces that he's brought in. I think it's going to be awesome. I can't wait. I'm really excited. They're really going to surprise some people, not nearly as much as the Texans did last year. But I mean, I'll give the Panthers some wins this year. I know they've got a low win total, but I give the Panthers some wins this year.
Yeah, the thing that the Panthers are facing that maybe some of the other teams in this division don't face is that their strength of schedule is kind of middle of the road, 14, 16, depending on which one you look at. They have a schedule that features 8 games in 2024 against teams that finish above 500 in 2023. One of those teams won 12 games or more, and 3 of them picked up less than 6 wins. So I think they face more challenges than the other teams here, but I think that it's going to be still fine for them. I think they'll still find success. Their over-under is 5.5 wins, and I think that they can easily clear that. Easily. This can be one of those seasons. This can be one of those seasons where they perform well, but the win-loss column doesn't necessarily reflect that type of success.
I would hate that.
They could win 6 games, but it felt like they won 8 or 9 because they played certain teams really close. And it's probably going to be that type of year for this team, as they're still frankly in rebuild mode. Honestly, they were working with pennies on the dollar last year and a bunch of scrubs. And so I think that they're still going to have to rebuild a lot of this team. There's going to be some growing pains, some first-time head coach pains as well. As brilliant as I think Dave Canales is, you can't know everything that guys like Andy Reid and Mike Tomlin know on the sidelines. So I think there will be growing pains. I think the win-loss column, it's not going to reflect what we see from an optical standpoint watching the games. And I think that Bryce Young takes the next step, and he's got new weapons to work with. He's got guys who I think really understand the game really well, can run their routes, can catch the football, and can be where they need to be at any given moment. So I am excited about this Panthers team. I am excited. I'm taking the over. It's a reluctant over, but I am taking the over, and I actually think my bold prediction is they finished not last in the division this year. I think they finished 3rd. So now who the other team is, I'm going to say the Saints, just because I'm not a believer in the Saints. I know a lot of people have a lot of rebuttal towards that, and they have a compelling argument. I think that the Saints are one of the more teams that have like a wide range of outcomes, but I think their ceiling is really low, and I think their floor is really low as well. And so ceiling low in the sense that maximum peak outcome for them is they win the division at 9-8 and then lose first round of the playoffs. I just don't see them getting double-digit wins. I don't even see them getting close to double-digit wins. So, bold prediction: Panthers don't finish last in this division. What do you think?
No, I agree with you. I think it'll be the Saints that finish last as well, and I want to so bad to put the Panthers above the Bucs, but I know that I probably can't do that as of now. But I want to so bad. I think it'll be close.
I think we'll be sitting here in 2025 talking about the Panthers making a push for the division.
I can see that. I really could.
So, all right, man. Hey, any closing comments about the NFC South?
I just hope that you can watch the Dirty Birds and not want to hurt yourself.
I know. One of these days. Hey, it's a good year for me. I have both the Atlanta Falcons and the Tennessee Vols to be excited about. I think there's a lot good that's going to happen this next year, but We've said that many a time. So here's to all you football fans out here who have high hopes for their teams. Cheers to you guys. We will be back here next week with the next division breakdown. We apologize for the delay and we appreciate you watching. We'll talk to you guys later.